What bike should I buy? It's probably the most frequently asked question in the world of cycling, and certainly here on my small YouTube channel since I launched just over a year ago. I get asked questions on a daily basis, both here on YouTube in the comment section down below and over on social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, links for all those down below. And I genuinely love getting all your questions and trying to help you out as best I can. So in this video, I thought I'd share some of the questions I get and also the answers I give in many cases, and also give some more general advice and tips on choosing a new road bike. The really important considerations you need to make when choosing a new bike, whether a road bike, gravel bike or mountain bike. And before we dive in, if you are new around here and you like what you see, then make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Okay, let's dive in. This video is sponsored by Pedalsure, the insurance company that makes it simple, quick and affordable to insure you and your pride and joy. Now, many of us know the grief of having your bike stolen. There's nothing worse, is there? And Pedalsure is a dedicated cycling insurance company and insures everything from road bikes to mountain bikes. And it doesn't matter if you have one bike or 5 bikes. And right now, the company is offering a free gold rated hip lock DX D-lock if you insure a bike worth over £1,500 and pay annually. Sounds good, doesn't it? And you'll find out more at the link down below. Let's start with some general tips and advice for choosing a new bike then, and do feel free to put your tips and advice down below in the comment section. So it's definitely a journey. You start here and you end with your buying decision at the end, and there's quite a few important steps to consider when making your buying decision. You need to think about what sort of riding you want to do, whether it's a road bike, a gravel bike or a mountain bike. And then if it's road riding, that's generally what we're talking about here, you want to decide what sort of riding you're doing. Do you want to go road racing, pin a number to your jersey? Well, that'll shape the decision. You want a bike focused on speed and aerodynamics. If you're more about long distance and comfort as priority, that might steer you towards an endurance bike with bigger tyres and more comfort-focused features. If you like the idea of going off-road, then a gravel bike might be a better idea. You can fit knobby tyres, fit slicks, mud guards, racks, more versatile option, especially if commuting to work is a factor as well. And if you want to ride around in the woods, then a mountain bike is probably the better option. And there is a whole other world of choice, from hardtails to full suspension bikes and 29ers and 650B. And I'll probably leave that for a separate video and focus more on road and a sort of gravel crossover area. Will it be your only bike, your one single bike, and does it have to do everything from road racing to gravel riding to commuting? Or do you have a fleet of bikes and this new bike will complement those bikes and have a more singular focus on a particular type of riding? And then, of course, you've got to talk about money, and you want to decide your budget. And everybody's budget is different, big or small. And you want to have a fairly determined budget, but probably have some flexibility built into that based on, especially now with prices going up during COVID-19, the pandemic, supply issues as well. And also prices do fluctuate a bit as well, but sometimes there are bargains and discounts to be had, so shopping around is definitely a factor. But you want a ballpark sort of pot of money to consider when choosing a new bike. And it's very tempting to easily go up in price than it is to go down. So try and be fairly rigid with your budget unless you have no limit and you go as high as you want. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of bike brands and companies all around the world vying for your hard-earning cash. And it's now easier than ever to do your research on bike brands. We've got magazines, we've got websites, we've got blogs, we've got social media influencers, and we have YouTube channels like this one here, Just Ride Bikes. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. So do your research, read all the reviews, see what your friends are riding, try and get an idea of what sort of bikes appeal to you and what bikes get good reviews, bad reviews, what people on social media are talking about. Try and get an idea for the brands that appeal to you. You might go for brands that are based near you, in the same town, city or country. That can definitely steer some people towards certain brands over other brands, but it might be other factors that influence your decision. Many people might be influenced by a certain brand, and that could be based on sports marketing. So Tour de France success can count for a lot. It might be based on what your local club or your local race team are using. It might be based on what your friends and family are using. And those sort of factors can influence you and push you towards one brand over another brand. The next factor is where you buy your bike from, and it can definitely influence the bike you end up with. Online versus buying from a traditional bike shop. Now, Buying from a bike shop has many advantages over buying online. Firstly, you can see and touch and sometimes ride the bike before you buy it, and you get really good advice from people in bike shops. You can ask them questions all day long until they kick you out and get bored of you, but they're a really good fountain of information because they get people like you and I asking questions all day long, and they're going to help you steer you in the right direction based on the information you're giving them on the riding requirements you have. The other reason for choosing a bike shop over online is that many will offer a free bike fit as part of buying a bike, or at least size you up on a bike. And getting the right size bike is so important. I get many questions around what size bike to buy, and it's really tricky for me here to offer advice on what size bike you buy based on a few measurements you've given me. You really need to get on the bike and have an expert, have a trained eye really size you up to that bike. So that's why a bike shop is still really valuable in buying a new bike. Because any bike might be the most amazing bike in the world, but if it's too big for you or too small for you, the experience of that bike will be tarnished by the fact it's not the right size and the fit is all wrong. So get the right size bike, and that's where a bike shop can definitely help you out. Now, of course, online is hugely appealing because the value for money is very strong. They cut out that layer of bike shops and distributors and pass the savings onto the customers. So great value for money, and if you know what you want and you're smart about your buying decision, then buying online is definitely an okay thing to do these days. We've seen how popular it's become in the last 10 years. The main downside to buying a bike online is getting the right size. But here, at least many bike brands do go to many efforts to offer a size guide to get you on the right bike, and they have a customer service kind of pop-up chat box that you can speak to get the right size. If you have a previous bike, a current bike, they're using the geometry from that, so a stack and reach, if you're happy with that bike, can be a good way to get the right size for a new purchase. Demo days are a hugely valuable way to swing a leg over the bike you might be considering buying, and become really popular in the last handful of years, especially with online direct sales brands like Canyon, YT and many others. Because they don't have a shop, you can't walk into the office and test ride a bike before you buy it. So they offer demo days around the world, around the country, at nice safe cycle venues. So you can book a bike, ride it around a test loop, get a feel for the bike, whether it's the right size for you and the right model for you before you give them your hard-earned cash. So you're getting nearer to buying the right bike, but you still need to fine tune the right bike for you, and deciding what features you do and don't want in a bike can really help you go in the right direction of one bike over another. So do you need electronic gears? Do you want disc brakes? Does it need to be versatile with mudguard and rack mount? Do you want wide tyre clearance? Do you want internal or external cable routing? Press fit or threaded bottom bracket? And then what frame material do you want? Carbon fibre, titanium, aluminium or steel? So you make a list of features you do want and features you don't want, then that will help you narrow down your choice quite a bit. If you don't want disc brakes and you don't want a press fit bottom bracket, well, that straight away will narrow your choice down quite a bit. And lastly, don't forget the importance of how a bike looks. These days, modern bikes are so good. The chance of buying a dud, a bad bike, compared to 20 or 30 years ago is much less. So you can buy a bike based on looks alone. The colour, design, the general appearance of the bike, the way it looks can be a real big influence. And many people will buy a bike based on looks alone. And oftentimes, there's nothing wrong with that. So definitely consider looks. Do you want a bright yellow frame or a subdued black frame? Many companies now offer a custom paint program, like Trek with Project One or Bear have theirs as well. So those brands offer something that many brands don't. So you want a custom paint finish, that can be a key buying decision as well. Okay, hopefully some useful tips and advice if you are in the market for a new bike and you're not sure where to start or what's important to consider when choosing a new bike, so hopefully steer you in the right direction. But now, in the second part of the video, let me share some actual real world questions I've had over the last few months here on YouTube and over on social media, and give my answers as we go through. And don't hesitate to give your answers to your questions in the comment section below. The first question is a really good one, and one I've actually had quite a few examples of over the last year. Is a gravel bike a good starter bike? So somebody new to cycling looking at a gravel bike as an entry into the world of cycling. And yes, a gravel bike is perfect for your first road bike. You get the more relaxed geometry of a gravel bike, so longer wheelbase, slacker head angles, so not quite as twitchy or nervous or agile as a road race bike, much more aligned to an endurance road bike. And then comfort is fantastic on our poorly surfaced roads. Bigger tyres than you get on a road bike, and oftentimes you get features designed to offer a smooth ride, like a future shock or a rear elastomer setup. And then you get much lower gears, wider range gears, whether 2x or 1x compared to a road race bike, and that's great if you're new to cycling, you're not super fit, or you just want an easier bike to ride up steep hills. You also have more scope to fit accessories like racks and mud guards if you're riding in the winter or riding to work as well, and oftentimes a new bike will double up as a commuting bike as well as a weekend warrior bike. And then a gravel bike is a great crossover bike. Gravel on a Saturday, getting muddy in the woods, and then road riding your local club on a Sunday, either with the same tyres or a switch of tyres. So a really good bike that can do everything and isn't restricted in the same way that a road race bike or a mountain bike is. So a great first bike, and the prices of gravel bikes are really good in the more affordable area. Brands like Grizl, Giant offering really good options, offering good value for money. Off the back of my Bianchi Specialissima review, I had this good question. Bianchi Specialissima versus Specialized Tarmac S-Works. Which bike to choose? Well, the Tarmac will be faster, got a lighter frame, a bit stiffer, more aero features as well with that one-piece aero handlebar and stem. But the Bianchi with that countervail technology is a supremely smooth bike, and the geometry gave it more measured, more kind of laid back, long-legged sort of endurance feel, but while still being a race bike. And the Bianchi looks absolutely stunning as well, and definitely has the Tarmac licked when it comes to looks, and then the heritage of the company as well. So for speed, the Tarmac; for ride quality and looks and heritage, the Bianchi every day. The next question is from somebody wanting to get into road racing, but still wanting a fast, smooth bike for long weekend rides, and definitely a price-conscious, value-focused customer. So we have a Giant TCR disc versus a Specialized Tarmac SL6 Sport versus a Trek Emonda SL5. 3 really good road bikes, 3 race bikes, all recently updated in the last year or so. So the Specialized Tarmac costs, in the UK at least, £2,750. And the first point here is that the older SL6 frame, not the newer SL7 with all the aero advances on that new platform. But the SL6 is still a really good riding bike, and it still looks great as well. So don't discount that bike because it's not quite as new as the SL7. You get a Shimano 105 mechanical shifting group set on this bike, and you get the DT Swiss wheels that the company uses on many of its bikes, which aren't that great. I mean, they're okay, but they're not that amazing. So older frame as well, like I mentioned. Then the Trek Emonda costs £2,500. And this is a modern frame, getting the more modern aero features of the Emonda platform. You get a semi-internal cable routing at the handlebar and stem, but a normal handlebar and stem you can easily change. Disc brakes, wide tyres, lots of nice features. But the Emonda SL is quite a heavy frame, about 1100 grams, compared to the SLR, which is more like 700 and heavier than the Tarmac and the Giant TCR. And then the Giant TCR Advanced 1 Plus disc. It's the most expensive bike of the 3 here at £2,999, but it might be a price worth paying because you get a lightweight carbon frame, about 850 grams or so lighter than the Emonda SL, and you get a Shimano Ultegra hydraulic disc brake group set, but with downgraded RS 510 cranks, and you do get carbon fibre wheels. So a bit more money than both bikes, but you are getting a better group set and a better set of carbon wheels. So Giant on value for money alone looks to be the best pick here. Next up, we have the Fairlight Cycle Secan or a Canyon Grizl. And a slightly unfair question here because, as many of you know, I actually own the Fairlight Cycle Secan. A link to my review down below if you haven't seen that. So 2 really good gravel bikes. I've ridden both and they're both excellent examples of their respective categories. Lots in common, but lots of differences. So the Secan is a beautiful Reynolds 853 steel frame with a carbon fork, while the Grizl is a full carbon frame and fork. They both take wide tyres. The Secan goes wider. They both have mounts and accessories for extra things like bags and racks and so on. The Grizl has fork mounts and a third bottle cage mount and a top tube mount, whereas the Secan doesn't have any fork mounts or top tube mount, but it does have rack mounts and proper mudguard mounts as well. The Grizl will be lighter because the carbon frame is lighter and probably a bit stiffer as well, but the Secan rides beautifully, has a wonderful level of smoothness. The Grizl does have the really neat VC LS seat post, which delivers a lot of seated comfort, but the front end is definitely a bit stiffer than the Fairlight. And I think what you choose between these two comes down to your priorities on weight for a start, because the Grizl will be lighter than the Secan unless you go really all out with the build on that bike, but there's something about the way it still rides and the way it looks. The longevity, durability, and the ride quality are just superb. But they're both fantastic riding bikes. If I was going for a speed focused bike, I would go for the Grizl. If I wanted a more kind of leisurely, comfort focused bike, the Secan would and does get my pick. Canyon Endurace CF SL8 versus the Cannondale Synapse Ultegra Di2. So 2 really good endurance bikes. The Synapse has been one of my favourite for the last few years, and the Endurace is a really good popular endurance bike. So the person asking advice on these 2 bikes wanted longer ride comfort. They currently have a Cervelo race bike, so used to race bike geometry, but they want a bit more comfort, and both bikes will offer more comfort than a race bike. Now, the Endurace has racier geometry than the Cannondale, quite a lot more aggressive than a Cannondale and most other endurance bikes. But if you're used to that race bike geometry and you're happy with that sort of more aggressive, lower kind of stretch geometry, but you want bigger tyres and that seat post you get on Endurace, it'll be a good pick. The Cannondale offers more laid-back geometry, a bit higher at the front, longer wheelbase than a race bike, and a space of mudguards and mounts of mudguards as well, which the Endurace doesn't take. So for all that comfort, long distance riding, the Cannondale probably gets my pick. But if you want a racier geometry set up on your endurance bike, the Canyon does get the nod. On money, well, the Canyon wins it, £3,900 versus £4,500 for the Synapse, with roughly broadly similar specs. So there we go then, just a few questions that I get on a regular basis and some of the answers I would give. And what I try not to do is tell somebody what bike to buy. I try and find out more about what riding they're doing, their requirements, their background, to try and help steer them in the right direction so you can ultimately choose a bike for you based on the research you've done and hopefully the guidance I've given you. I don't want to sit here and say, buy that bike, because I might be biased. I don't want to steer you in that sort of direction. So I'm trying to help you, try and guide you, and really find out more about your background, the riding you're doing, what is important to you in a bike, and trying to help distinguish the features on a bike that really talk to you on that sort of level and will be a better fit. They're trying to find the right bike to fit the rider. I think that's really important. And hopefully some of the tips and advice and questions and answers in this video have helped you kind of get a better understanding of what's important to consider when shopping for a new bike. And if the video has prompted any questions at all, or you've got any questions around what bike to buy, don't hesitate to put them down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Anyway, that's all for now. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you so much for watching.